Some of you may remember from about a month and a half, 2 months ago, that I did a Metallica discography review. And due to the overwhelming popularity of that, I decided to set up a vote on the Metal Couch Facebook page to allow the people to vote for which discography I should go through next. And the vote was near unanimous. You guys wanted me to go through some Megadeth, so here's some Megadeth. Today we start with Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good, the debut album by Megadeth. After Mustaine was kicked out of Metallica and sent from New York back to LA, he was probably pretty pissed off. I would be too if I was dragged out to New York just to be fired and sent back all the way across the country again. After this event, he decided to form up a band and create a revenge album, if you will. He underwent a writing process on the long bus ride back to LA, writing a whole bunch of new songs to include on the debut album. Now, speaking of the album itself, the original production isn't really that good. I mean, the sound of the original pressing of Killing Is My Business, it's not that impressive. Granted, I have reviewed this album before, and this was one of the very first reviews I ever did on this channel. It was a review of the 2002 reissue. But going through this album, it wasn't the first Megadeth album I ever heard. In fact, it was one of the, I should say it was probably one of the albums I listened to after their more popular ones. And it's sad to me that Killing Is My Business doesn't really get as much credit as it deserves, because it's overshadowed by the second album, Peace Sells But Who's Buying. It is overshadowed by that album greatly. But we'll get to Peace Sells later. But track listing, you've got Last Rites, Love to Death, Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good, Skull Beneath the Skin, These Boots, Rattle Head, Chosen Ones, Looking Down the Cross, and Mechanics. Last Rites, Love to Death opens up with a nice little piano intro, sounds pretty creepy, and then you get into an all-out guitar assault by Mustaine. Now, one thing I want to remark about Mustaine's vocals on this album, and they're present at the beginning of Love to Death. Mustaine on this album does a little bit of these kind of whoas that drag out, and that, to me, doesn't help this album. In fact, I find it to be borderline annoying. I don't really hear very many thrash metal bands doing that, so I don't know why it was present. Maybe he didn't have any lyrics for that spot. Who knows? But Love to Death is a perfect showcase of some of the main factors in the signature Megadeth sound. Number 1, intensity. Number 2, difficulty. Number 3, okay, maybe there isn't a number 3. Just intensity and complexity. Anyway, Love to Death, lyrically, is classic Megadeth. Very, very dark overtones here, talking about killing someone who didn't love him. This person we don't really know. There was even a series of Megadeth comic books in the 90s, and I believe that Last Rites, Love to Death was used for a story in one of the comic books. I think I remember reading it a long time ago. Then after that, you get the title track, Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good, which has been covered by many bands before, and the title track of this album, probably the most famous song off of this album besides Rattle Head and Mechanics. Then we get the Skull Beneath the Skin, which is my favorite track off of this album. It showcases everything that Megadeth really is, with the riffing, the soloing, Mustaine's signature snarling vocals. Really is a very creative song, and again, dark overtones are present on this album, which it's amazing how you know, you look back at the beginning of the Megadeth discography, everything's dark, there's elements of witchcraft, even some Satanism and things like this. Now you get towards today, and there's Christian overtones and everything else. It's like a complete 180 and a completely different dimension for Megadeth. It's different. And at this point, if you have the original pressing of the album, you would get a cover of These Boots Are Made for Walkin', which I have to admit, I really do like this cover. Not really a big fan of the original song, but this is a very imaginative cover, which would later be censored on all reissuings of the album. Most notably on the 2002 reissue, where it was included on that album, but all the lyric variations by Mustaine were censored with a beep. So the majority of listening to that track on the remaster is Mustaine, who will say a few words, and then there will be a really long beep. And this goes on for maybe once every 2 seconds. Really annoying, but this was, but that had to be changed due to the fact that the original writer of the song did not agree with Dave Mustaine's changes to the original song, and recommended that he take it down or else there will be legal action. After these boots, you get Rattle Head, which is similar to Metallica's Whiplash in the fact that it is one of those songs that's supposed to get the crowd pumped up. It's a song, it's like a flagship song of the band, if you will. It's purely a crowd hype song. It's to get the mosh pits going and things like that. Then we get Chosen Ones, which lyrically is silly, and from what I hear, it's about Monty Python and the Holy Grail and the Killer Rabbit. Very creative riff, though, probably the most unique sounding riff on this album. And then we get the weakest track, I believe, on the album, and that is Looking Down the Cross. I'd never really been too much of a big fan of Looking Down the Cross. Is it a bad song? No. I just think that it takes too long to get to the point. And then we have Mechanics, which I want to propose something to my audience with Mechanics. I actually want you guys, and I'm challenging you here, I want you guys in the comment section below to actually intelligently debate which one you believe is better, Mechanics or the Four Horsemen. Personally, I prefer Mechanics. Why? Because it's short, sweet, to the point. Four Horsemen takes way too long. Not to mention the really, really slow galloping. To me, galloping isn't supposed to be slow. A gallop is not an action that is slow. A gallop is a very quick action. To have the Four Horsemen going dun 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 dun, yeah, it kind of sounds like a horse. But then you get Mechanics, which is a dun 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 dun, it's going the speed of light. Lyrically, Mechanics is silly, but it's still I believe, to be a better variation of the Four Horsemen. Why don't you go on ahead and debate that down in the comment section below. I'm curious to see what your guys' take is on what you believe is better. Now, on the 2002 reissue, there were 3 demos included. These demos included Last Rites, Love to Death, Mechanics, and The Skull Beneath the Skin. Really, really bad quality on those demos. But then again, I believe they were taken from cassette tapes or something to that effect. So, and it's really surprising to hear just how higher Mustaine's voice was on the demos compared to the actual album. He sounds like, he honestly sounds like a 12-year-old doing vocals. I know how bad that may sound, but try to think of that. It's almost as if it's a male that hasn't hit puberty yet is doing vocals on a Megadeth song. If that's your kind of thing, sure, go ahead. You'll probably like them. Me, I think it was an interesting take on these Megadeth songs to be able to hear what they were originally recorded as. But how does Killing Is My Business hold up over time? Does it deserve more credit than Peace Sells But Who's Buying or even some other later albums? I think so. I think that Killing Is My Business definitely deserves a lot more credit than it's given. Of course, being overshadowed by Peace Sells and other works like Rusted Peace. Notice how I kind of forget about So Far So Good So What, but we'll get to that in a few more days. I feel that Killing Is My Business is a fit debut for Megadeth. Granted, the production value really isn't great on the original pressing. It was fixed on the 2002 reissue. So if you don't mind that these boots being censored with a beep on the brand new reissue, go ahead and pick up the reissue. If you have something against that, find an original pressing, but good luck. I've yet to find an original pressing of Killing Is My Business. If I had to go back and give a numerical grade for Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good, I'd probably give it a 7.5 out of 10. There really isn't much here that they still play live today, which is a shame, but that's mostly because Mustaine refuses to play any songs that have to do with black magic or Satanism, to which I want to remark that he refuses to play songs that involve black magic, Satanism, or songs about killing people like Love to Death. Yet he creates a song, Never Dead, which was included on 13, which involves demons spilling the blood of the innocent. Hypocrisy, you decide. So, next time, we'll have a look at Killing It. Yeah, we just looked at Killing Is My Business. What is wrong with me? Next time, we'll have a look at Peace Sells, But Who's Buying? Danny here from Metal Couch, signing off.